content is really hard to make. I think creators and brand marketers make it look easy, but the reality of content creation is that it is difficult to make. And so having a never-ending stream of content is so much more valuable than a lot of brands realize until they really get their hands on it. The goal has been really to streamline influencer campaigns. We want to make sure that brands don't have to be in the weeds as much as they have been doing it in-house. We really want to handle all that like nitty-gritty details for them just to make sure they can like focus their efforts elsewhere.
Welcome to the DTC Podcast. This is a long time coming. Minisocial has been an amazing partner for DTC kind of almost since we started. I feel like it's been going on like 2 years since you guys have kind of been in the newsletter. So it's awesome to see you here.
Yeah, it's been great to be a part of DTC from the beginning. And we're so excited to be on the podcast now.
Cool. Well, is UGC dead? I think everyone always says bombastic things like that. But how do you guys see? You guys have obviously been evolving this business for a while now. What do you see as sort of the modern state of the union when it comes to micro influencers and UGC in ad campaigns?
Yeah, I think the thing with UGC is it's been around a lot longer than people think. I think UGC is just like the new cool term for like content made by other people other than the brand. Before that, it was like brand ambassador. And so I think UGC has always been around. I think it always will be around. And it's exciting to see how UGC can continue to evolve. We love creator generated content. So content made by micro influencers, but we also love content made by customers. That's a really exciting way for brands to get, true authentic UGC as well. So UGC is like all encompassing.
And it's evolving all the time. I feel like every customer is becoming a creator. TikTok Shops is changing the game where everyone might, eventually might have their own little shop attached to their sort of creator or personal profile. So I see it. It's all kind of converging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like one quote from Emily Weiss that I always think about and thought about from day one when we started Minisocial is she felt like every customer for Glossier was basically an influencer, and that's how they treated their customers. And I think that's how they were able to grow so rapidly.
All right, well, take me back to the early days. Take me back to like why you guys started Minisocial. Were you already a couple when you started this business, or did that happen? Take us back.
I think that had already happened at that point. Minisocial
Yes.
sort of came out of our work together in sort of the marketing agency space. We had a social first agency back in New York. And one of our services that we offered was these high volume micro influencer campaigns. Basically, it was a cheat code that we would use to get content that we could then repurpose on social. And over time, it just sort of became the only thing that the brands that we worked with wanted from us. And so we listened to them. We spun up Minisocial as a standalone thing in 2018, and it's been chugging since.
I guess everything depends on the scale of the brand and what you're looking to do. But when brands come to you for campaigns, what does I don't know what the term is, a gaggle of influencers or a murder of influencers? Like how many influencers, how many micro influencers are people launching in campaigns?
Yeah, we call them a mob of influencers.
Mob, that's better, yeah.
Well, yeah, from the beginning, our sort of focus has been going really high volume. So typically it's dozens, sometimes it's hundreds of people. And the idea is similar to what Kirsten was saying about Glossier. You want this enormous group of people talking about you all at once, and then you also want the ability to grab that content and repurpose it if you desire. So common use cases are, organic social, ads, the website, that sort of thing.
So with these micro influencers, what are they usually paid scenarios? Are they usually just product seeding scenarios? What in this mob of influencers, how does it actually work on an influencer by influencer basis?
Yeah, so we've seen both, and both work and serve sort of different purposes, in my opinion. So I feel like product seeding campaigns do really well for getting high volume, lots of creators, lots of influencers talking about you. But then if you want to get really particular on the content that you're getting back, I think a campaign where you include creator payment can be really beneficial. That way a creator has a little more skin in the game to get you content that you're going to love. So both serve purposes, and we love running both types of campaigns. I think it just depends on if it's more of an awareness play or more of a content play.
You guys mentioned cheat code. And it's honestly what I think about, like just the fact that you guys continue to advertise in the newsletter, and it's like our audience has a sort of like never ending appetite for this kind of stuff. Why do you think it's just because it's just what works the best when it comes to ad content? Like, why is it that it's a cheat code?
Yeah, I think content is really hard to make. I think creators and brand marketers make it look easy, but the reality of content creation is that it is difficult to make. And so having a never-ending stream of content is so much more valuable than a lot of brands realize until they really get their hands on it.
Super neat. And then with brands that are launching kind of with you guys throughout the years, can you get away with using the same mob of influencers over and over again, or are you constantly looking to and have them, that there's winners that do well every time they post, or are you sort of adding to that list and growing the number of influencers, different influencers each time?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. We have a group of like sort of day one people. A lot actually work for Mini as employees at this point.
Yeah.
But we're constantly bringing on new folks. We have a whole team of we call them influencer coordinators that are scouting new creators all day, every day. Word of mouth is huge for us, so we get a ton of referrals. And then from there, it's just a matter of watching the folks who are coming in, making sure they meet our standards, and then sort of onboarding them about our process and our expectations. Since Mini is a little unique in how the campaigns work, what we're looking for from the creators, that sort of thing.
Why don't you walk us through how a Minisocial campaign works so people get an idea?
Yeah, totally. So it starts with brands putting together a campaign brief. That sounds way more intense than it actually is. We sort of walk brands through every single piece of data that we need from them. So high level, you're telling us about the brand, the type of content that you want, whether you want creators to post on Instagram or TikTok, and then a little bit about the product that you're having creators work with. Once we have those details, we'll give it a once over and we'll be in touch with any questions we have. After that, we're a fully managed option. So we book the campaign by handpicking creators that we think are a match. We'll send those guys an invite and they'll opt in if they want to join. And then we'll present that list to the brand to approve before product gets shipped out. After that, it's a pretty turnkey process. Creators get product, they'll shoot, they'll share, and then all of that content is available on Mini for the brand to download and repurpose however they like. So it's super common to add your social person or your web guy or whoever needs content to that dashboard. Mm-hmm. That way they can each get it plugged in on whatever channel they manage.
Yeah, the goal has been really to streamline influencer campaigns. We want to make sure that brands don't have to be in the weeds as much as they have been doing it in-house. We really want to handle all that like nitty-gritty details for them just to make sure they can like focus their efforts elsewhere.
One of the reasons people are maybe intimidated by this a little bit is they feel like they've got to have if they're going to be producing a lot of content on these platforms, they want to have a really strong organic base as well. How true is that? Do you need to have a balanced organic approach while you're launching paid campaigns on Instagram and TikTok, or is it sort of independent?
Yeah, I actually just wrote a post about this on LinkedIn literally today. So this is like very timely for me. I had a few calls this morning where I was talking with a brand and the founder was like, do we need to have a TikTok presence in order to do a TikTok campaign? And I think the answer with TikTok especially is the brand doesn't necessarily need a presence as much as the other platforms. I think with TikTok, as long as there's like what I like to call proof of life there, where you have a couple posts, it shows the products, it shows your brand, but you don't need to be posting every single day on TikTok as a brand. I think the creators can really do the heavy lifting for you on TikTok. And then just use your own organic channel as almost like a landing page is kind of a nice way to think about it for TikTok, especially.
Super cool. On TikTok, one of the strategies, because you doesn't have to be linked to your brand in the same way it does on Instagram. I've heard of this interesting strategy from the Tabs chocolate guy and a few other brands now where you actually get influencers to spin up their own brand related page related to yours. So it would be like Johnny's Tabs chocolate page. And basically it's basically getting your influencers to sort of like become affiliates in a bigger way, right? Sort of like a Mary Kay salesperson or something like that. And I see that being a really interesting strategy for these creators to have maybe more than one handle where they produce content related to a product maybe. Is that something you're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of creators get really involved in the brands that they love. And I think that's just one great way that creators are getting super involved. I think it's similar to a lot of these brands getting those macro influencers and celebrities involved in a brand. I think we're about to see a wave in which, micro influencers start getting involved in brands in bigger ways like that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things brands can do is to give creators a little bit of buy-in on like the company as a whole. Like one example that comes to mind is, Kirsten's not really an influencer, but she's an investor in this platform called Locker. And you have a little bit of skin in the game. And so you were just constantly putting it out into the universe where you're like, hey, here's how I'm using this app. You may dig it. And I think there's an opportunity to do the same sort of thing at a more micro level with these creators, even if you're not sort of like bringing them on the cap table. It's cool to have them feel involved. So whether you're getting them involved in product decisions, you're like, hey, here are colorways we're thinking about. What do you think? Here's an upcoming product. It's not live to the product yet, but we want you to try it, that sort of thing. I think there's a way to bring these guys into the fold, get a deeper relationship, and have that sort of manifest in a cool way on their organic presence.
Yeah, I think brands can start thinking a little bit like creators do in terms of how they talk to their customers on social. And I think a lot of the reason people follow creators is because they love the person-to-person relationship. It feels like, they're talking one-on-one to you. And I think brands can really take that and run with it on social as well.
What are you seeing in terms of platform trends out there? You mentioned Instagram and TikTok. I'm always curious about Shorts. And I feel like Shorts is just like the redheaded step cousin or something like that, where it isn't really mentioned a lot. People aren't spending as much time on it. But what do you guys think of Shorts, and how are Minisocial creators playing on Shorts?
Yeah, Shorts are definitely interesting. I think there's been more resistance on YouTube to creators making Shorts than there has been even on Instagram, where you had these people going from photo to video with Reels. I think the YouTube folks are so used to making more long form content. So switching the aspect ratio, going for like a quick hit, I think has been resisted more in an interesting way.
Yeah.
But similar to when Instagram was really pushing out Reels, we see that YouTube is really aggressively pushing Shorts. So it's a good way for creators to growth hack. And so, there's probably a reason why they should be pursuing them. What I would like to see is those YouTube creators creating Shorts deliberately rather than just trying to repurpose content either from their long form stuff and just cropping it in real narrow, or, I have this video on TikTok, I'm going to pop it on Shorts and see what happens.
What about TikTok versus Reels? I know TikTok is making a huge push in the States with the TikTok shops. I don't know if they're still doing it, but there was a bit of a bonanza going on there with credits for consumers and advertisers as well. Yes. What are you seeing between Instagram and Reels in terms of growth?
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok.
Yes. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I think that's still the case. I think TikTok is still trying to be almost like a shopping platform. And, TikTok's still offering incentives. Every time I'm scrolling through the platform and accidentally swipe over to TikTok shop, which they make it super easy to do, I'm assuming on purpose, there's always that little code that comes up that's like, oh, get 50% off your first order. And I'm always like, how are they doing this?
Yeah,
so like
their subsidies are crazy.
Yeah, they must be playing the long game here. They're trying to get so many brands onto the platform. And it really is a lot of the content in my feed. You see that little bubble at the bottom that says, shop on TikTok shop. And they're really pushing that kind of content. So I think if it's a wave that brands can ride, I don't think it should be brands only focused, but I think it's a good channel to diversify with.
100%. I think it's also a bit of debt that TikTok has in terms of trust. I think of my personal situation. It was probably like a year and a half ago, I bought one of those weight sets on TikTok. It was basically one of those weight selecting dumbbells or whatever, but I actually got it, 2 months later, and it was like literally baby rattles that they had sent me. It was like a just like brutal troll. Like, just send me nothing. Don't send me literal baby rattles. So what I'm trying to say is I think they were very lax with their policies for a really long time, and they probably let a lot of scammier people onto the platform.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a bit of a trust gap there. And I think, and anytime you're trying to establish a new, marketplace or it's interesting to think of TikTok as like one of the few real competitors to a place like Amazon in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got your Shopify ability, you've got your Amazon, and now TikTok with Shops is like this entertainment and shopping platform all in one. And if like what we're seeing in Asia or China specifically in terms of like live shopping, is any, if that's ahead of the curve, then TikTok could be just massive for that. I still haven't seen like a lot of live shopping stuff take off in North America as much, but I'm sure it's bubbling.
Yeah, I always wonder with live shopping if people just don't have the attention span for it. I do see a lot of it on TikTok now. There's certain brands. I think the brand Halara is the one that comes to mind. They do it like activewear and like women's clothing. But they always pop up in my feed of their like streaming live on TikTok, and it's always like their people in their brand talking about like they're trying on the clothes and showing how it fits. And I think that's an interesting way to use live shopping, where it's like you're contextualizing the products and trying it on, showing the fit. So I think it's interesting. I just wonder do we have the attention span for that? Especially with TikTok, they've made us scroll so fast that now I'm like, can I sit and watch something for 5 minutes?
I'm really interested to see where the entertainment landscape goes in the next little while, when so many people it's going to eat Hollywood, right? Like I watch movies on TikTok now, like one clip at a time. I'll get sucked into these terrible movies that I probably wouldn't ever watch otherwise, but because it's a clip and I'm having to search for part 18.
Yep. I've been there too. Been there.
Stephen Baldwin vehicle. I'm like, what am I even doing with my life? I'm just curious. So a brand wanting to get into, I guess you guys work with brands of all different sizes, but what does it like an investment look like to kind of get started with a campaign that's going to move the needle for a brand that, let's say, already has like product market fit?
Yeah, so we're super accessible. Our campaign started $2,000, which is a group of 25 creators. We're really proud that we don't have any long-term commitments, no hidden fees. We just bill at a flat rate. Mm-hmm. When you want to do a project, we spin it up. Then if you want to pick up with another project immediately after, that's an option, but there's no obligation to. Mm-hmm. Our sort of sweet spot with Mini is that we can work with teeny tiny solo founder brands all the way up to some of the biggest brands out there, some of which we're under NDA about, but some of which are pretty big.
Just in terms of like what you guys work with so many different kinds of clients. I guess it's all brand specific and brands that are doing things particularly well. But are you seeing any trends in the D2C space about really what's cranking these days?
Yeah, I feel like CPG overall is doing really well, especially like the innovations in the food and beverage category. Poppy is a brand that comes to mind, Olipop in that vein. Emmy is another great example with their, innovations in ramen. I feel like those brands get people really excited, where it's like, this is like Magic Spoon. This is my favorite food from childhood. I love cereal, but this is a healthy version of it. So I think that is one category for sure. And then another category is personal care. I think personal care brands like, body care brand like Esker, and then, skincare brands like Topicals. I think people really love just like those, personal care routines and rituals. So I think we're going to continue to see personal care scaling up.
Yeah, totally. It's a bunch of brands where you may have a similar product in your bathroom or in your fridge that you just have used for a decade and never thought twice about it. But you're like, there are alternatives now. Mm-hmm. Maybe it has better ingredients. Maybe it's from a team that you really believe in. And
right. You're not using the drugstore body wash anymore. You're going to use a body wash that's pretty. It matches your bathroom. The scents are, within this century.
It doesn't have endocrine disruptors built into it.
Totally.
Or whatever.
Right. Yeah. The better for you products. I do 100%. Feel like everybody resonates across the board.
I just did a podcast with Mila, which is a soup dumpling brand. And the other thing I see doing is people that are creating categories. There's gyoza and there's all sorts of different dumplings in your freezer aisle, but there actually isn't soup dumplings until these guys came along. And they're just kind of blowing up because it was this latent desire in the market that people could get at restaurants, but they couldn't get anywhere else. And it's like anytime you can be in a category of one on a grocery shelf and your product is pick upable, you're in a good place.
Right.
Super cool. So we've talked a lot about ads, and I think I want to even just go back to the main point, which is like everything with Minisocial is dual pronged. You're getting people to actually launch to their audiences and enact whatever influence they have over their micro audiences. Then there's repurposing it for either your organic or your paid feeds. And then I'm wondering, are people still doing a lot of like whitelisting or dark posting where you're actually then running ad spend through the creator's handle? And do you guys facilitate that, or how does that work with Minisocial?
Yeah, I think we're actually seeing more sort of whitelisting now than we were a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. With TikTok especially, they've made it so easy to get that spark code from the creator, and then you're just up and running. So on Mini, it's a super easy process. We just get you connected with the creator to get that set up, and it works wonderfully for a lot of brands.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is, and the reason we do it as a two-pronged solution and not just UGC and not just micro influencers is that the content that's performing for brands on social is the same kind of content that these creators are making on a regular basis. So for us, it was just a no-brainer to have brands be able to utilize the content and have the creators post it, because you're going to get that awareness, you're going to get that brand halo effect, and then you're going to have content that actually performs across your channels. And whitelisting is just another extension of that.
I just got off a webinar that we did in partnership with Pilot House about AI and ad creation. It's about how to build your own custom GPT. It's funny, I use a custom GPT for the podcast. Are there any interesting ways that you guys at Minisocial are using AI at this point? And what is it like? I imagine for like creator briefs, like I bet with briefs, there's some potential there. How else are you guys using AI?
Yeah, so the briefing process, I think, is the most exciting way to use AI. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're set up really well for marketers who know exactly what they want creators to say. They know what their vision for the project is. But we do work with some folks who either are new to the space or maybe are having a difficult time articulating that vision. And so even if you're using that AI to just get the ball rolling, it's helpful if you go in and edit it. But yeah, that's something that we have added to our brief builder that we're really excited about. It's been cool to see people using.
Yeah, I just used AI on LinkedIn for writing like a job description. And even though it wasn't like 100% perfect, I think it was helpful just to guide in like the direction to go. And I think that's going to be similar for our brief builder, where it's, it's not going to be able to tell you exactly what you want because you know your brand better than anybody else, but it'll be able to really set stuff up for you so that you can, take it and run with it.
Super cool. I think up to the ads that we're running for D2C to drive subscribers. And it's basically like we've tried so many different ads, but there's basically like one angle that works really well, which is like, don't tell my boss I got all my great marketing ideas from the D2C newsletter. It's basically like some sneaky, Gen Z or millennial who's being lazy and like, it's that one angle of just wanting to feel smarter than your competitors or wanting to, and it's like we've tried so many different angles, but that is the angle that drives subscribers at the lowest rate. And so I'm curious, when it comes to angles, those specific angles and hooks into products, are those most often articulated by the brand, or are they most often discovered by the creator in their efforts?
Yeah, it's super common for brands to provide hooks that work if they're someone that's pretty sophisticated with their ads and they already know that like these 5 prompts are what absolutely crush it. That's great. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we do see brands coming to us for, though, is to sort of discover what hooks work.
Right.
And so a lot of brands will leave it open-ended. They'll let creators think outside of the box. And then you end up with dozens or hundreds of different twists on things that you can then revisit with other ad creative down the road.
Right. We see a lot of brands, get a library of content and then test a lot with it, make montages with it, see which hook is performing best, and then really come back and sort of iterate on that with multiple campaigns. And one thing that I like too, talking about sort of iteration is with our campaigns, we see a lot of brands A/B testing TikTok versus Instagram. They'll do one campaign on TikTok, one on Instagram, and see which platform is really where their audience is spending time. Because you can take an educated guess, but until you test it, you're really not going to know which audience has the right creators for you and which platform that is.
I think back to a couple of things I've heard recently is just how, and actually this is a topic that's a little controversial for you maybe, because this was I was talking about AI with someone about AI influencers and people just basically like spinning up these AI iterations. Because one of the things that I've heard that is working really well is when, as an influencer, you're calling out like a very specific customer avatar. So, someone, I'm a firefighter, or I'm like very, very down to their profession or their exact niche mindset or whatever. And how with the sort of degradation of the targeting algorithms, like actually using your creative to speak to your exact customer. And I guess that works for either AI influencers or micro influencers in a way when you're getting a mob of them together where you could actually have them or test out like very specific hooks, customer specific hooks. Is that something you're finding when people like are able to call out their exact customer, they're seeing better conversion rates?
Yeah, so I think finding the right people for your brand is hugely important. I'm not a huge believer in the idea of AI creators. Mm-hmm. It's something that we're sort of keeping an eye on, but we were just at a talk in New York with Nick Sharma and a few other folks where they were talking about just people wanting to be creators in general. And there was some,
audience kerfuffle about AI because it was Tech Week. So like everyone was talking about AI. So people were asking like the creators on the panel, like, is AI going to be taking over? Should I even start? Should I even become a creator? And I think the response from them is very similar to how we've been feeling, where it's like, can you name an AI creator that you're following? And a lot of the times, like, the creators that we follow them because like they're real. They share real life struggles. They're authentic. And I think people are going to be actually craving that more and more as AI takes over other aspects of their life. They're going to be craving more of those like authentic connections that influencers just give us.
Nice. Any other sort of tips on how to get the most out of micro influence campaigns?
Yeah, so I'd say the number one thing is just to make sure you have a good plan for how to repurpose the content. Mm-hmm. We have brands that take content and plug it on Hulu ads. That's awesome. Email ads on social or, Instagram, TikTok, that sort of thing. That's all great. All I would say is like having this library of content does you no good unless you're going to repurpose it.
Yeah. And in the same vein, like you don't have to be spending, a Hulu ad money in order to get your value out of UGC. A lot of brands are using it on their homepage of their site, on landing pages, use it to power your organic social channels. That's how Minisocial started. We were running organic social media channels for DTC brands. And that's what we needed was that organic feeling content. But we kept shooting the same photo in our bathroom over and over again. So we wanted to, diversify that content, work with creators, and utilize it on organic to help our channels grow. So I think it's really just like kind of going back to the principles there where it's like, utilize this content as much as you can. There's really no limit as to where you can use it or how you can use it.
It's super neat. You mentioned Hulu. Like we're always talking about different top of funnel efforts. And I'm interested how UGC and creator content will work on platforms like TV or linear TV, just because it's like the reason that I think one of the reasons it works is that it's a bit of a pattern disrupt where you're seeing another person talk about a brand. And there's even a bigger pattern disrupt if you're to see that like DIY sort of creator style content on, the large rectangle in your living room rather than the small rectangle in your hand. Probably there's an opportunity for brands that do that well.
Yeah, I don't watch a ton of like real TV, but when I do, it's been interesting to see UGC style content make its way onto that platform, especially since a lot of the times they won't even crop it into that like horizontal 16:9. They'll just do like black bars on the side, vertical video.
Yeah.
They want to draw attention to the fact that this is different, this is raw. And I do think, like you mentioned, that contrast is something they're playing with to grab attention where you may not have it if it's super polished and looks just like every commercial before and after it.
Exactly.
It worked for Kanye in the Super Bowl. It's just
he filmed that like on his phone in his truck, if I remember correctly.
I think just more and more authentic content is going to continue to shine. I think a lot of people are just sort of over those like overproduced ads. You know, they're fun to watch, but like I don't think they're getting into the like the feels in the way that like an authentic, you know, video is.
And I think that's on UGC as well to continue to strive towards real authenticity, which is why I think, you know, a graduated, you know, influencer program where you're seeding products and you're getting content for people that just genuinely love your product, and then maybe there's a level you're paying and there's different ways, but it's just like I bet people are getting, just like they're going to be cognizant. I'm cognizant if anyone sends me an AI image now. I would also be cognizant of any UGC that came across that felt inauthentic in a way, right? So it's like you have to keep striving for that really authentic connection to your product as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, authenticity is like the core for why influencers work. So I think leaning into that wherever you can throughout your influencer or UGC strategies is super important.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible to over-brief creators. And so that's something that we see from time to time, is the idea of letting creators do their own thing with it. The ideal is for content to feel like it's one friend recommending something to another, not like it's some, you know, infomercial where it's like, oh, here's a product, here's all the features I love about it.
Right,
you know, big smile.
And leaning into trends too, I think is very important in that vein, where it's like, you know, the more this can feel like just content that people are watching when they're scrolling through TikTok, the better. You don't want it to look or feel like an ad.
Well, thank you both for coming on the DTC podcast. It's a long time coming today. And I know just from the fact that you've been in the newsletter so much and we've driven so many users and we've gotten a lot of feedback about the tool, I can just like strongly like recommend that our listeners check out Minisocial if you're looking for UGC. Do you have I think you guys have a special link, maybe an offer that people can hit up?
Yeah. So yeah, we can do 15% off for brands who come to us and just mention D2C. We love supporting all the brands from the newsletter. So it's been great.
Super nice. Well, nice to meet you both. Are you going to be at Grow in New York coming up?
We thought we might be. I'm not sure if we are yet or not. But yeah, okay. I would love to see you if we are. Still TBD.
And then keep in mind, we have C-Suite Mastermind coming up September 18th and 19th if you want to make your way to Victoria, British Columbia, which is a very beautiful place.
Yeah, we actually have 2 team members up there. So we might as well make it up there at some point.
Oh, super cool. Nice. Well, great to meet you both. And yeah, look forward to kind of keeping our relationship with Minisocial going.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. Yeah, excited for that as well.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.